part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
We are back from the holiday break.
Welcome to 2023.
2023.
You know what I'm going to be writing for the next 3 months?
What?
2022.
Yep. Guarantee it. And it's not that far from 2021.
What?
Like, do you ever just feel like, how is it already 23?
Yes, but the way you phrased that, I was like, what?
My daughter asked me, when you guys got married, you said 2006. Did you mean 2016?
How old are you, Sid?
I meant
Do some math.
I'm old, and I've got my winter coat on. I'm nice and fat from all the holiday food.
Yeah, I
wasn't
really,
before the holidays, but now I'm overweight.
No, you definitely were before, too. So am I. It's okay, though. I mean, I'm comfortable with myself. Although I will say this. Like a week ago, I started thinking, okay, I need to get through. Here's what happens to fat guys. Just so everybody that's not fat that's listening to this understands the conundrum and dilemma that we find ourselves in. I was like,
can I hold that thought for a second?
You can.
This is the Ball Card Show, the sports podcast.
Oh, yeah, for the Sports Collector.
I'm Jason.
I'm Gary.
As always, we're brought to you by the Press Play Podcast Network. Back to non-sports card related
Back
things.
to non-sports card related things. So here's the fat guy conundrum. About a week ago, I'm thinking to myself, okay, get through New Year's, right? And then I need to buckle down and drop about 20 pounds. Like, I probably need to drop like 80 pounds, but I'd be comfortable if I dropped 20 pounds.
20 pounds a few times, you know?
Yeah, like for sure. Take 20 pounds and get comfortable there and then drop another 20. But here's the problem. I'm thinking to myself at that point. So we knew we had plans over New Year's and we were going to go pretty hard in the paint, which happened. And I was like, okay, once I get through that. And then I went, wait a minute. Then I got the Super Bowl coming up.
Then March Madness.
So if I'm going to waste the effort between now and the Super Bowl because I'm just going to crush it at the Super Bowl. Yeah. And then another month and a half later, it's like, oh, I got March Madness. Yeah. We do a guys trip. I'm going to waste that month because I'm just going to go hard in the paint there. And then it's like, well, 4th of July is only like 2 months after that. There's always a date on the calendar that involves massive amounts of consumption of beverage and food. And there's no break.
Yeah.
And that's the fat guy conundrum. It's not that we don't want to lose weight. It's that we don't want to lose weight bad enough to miss out on imbibing and smashing food on special occasions.
Yeah. That is probably the worst introduction we've ever had.
You didn't like that at all? I think it's way better than you just randomly singing songs.
Which there's still time for that. Also, listeners at home, if I get a little bit excited or sound weird.
I'm a little terrified. I'm not going to lie.
My wife brought down a drink. I thought it was an adult beverage.
I did too. It's like noon. I'm like, hey, okay, Leslie.
I said, okay, this is interesting. It's not alcohol, but we don't know exactly what it is.
It's ayahuasca. I guarantee you that's what it is.
She bought it through an Instagram ad.
How much was it for a 12-pack?
It had some types of mushrooms. It was like $50 for a 12-pack. It has some types of mushrooms. It's called a social beverage.
Yeah.
I have a few of these.
It's ayahuasca.
You feel lifted. So I think I'm microdosing on this episode, but I'm not sure. So
we're going to find out.
50-50 shot. I leave with diarrhea during this episode.
Hey, join the club.
Hey, poop jokes, fat jokes, and now let's talk sports.
In it. Let's do it. You want to talk about the fact that you're getting ready to do your first setup at a card show tomorrow?
Do that, yeah. So today is Friday, January the 6th as we're recording this. On the 7th, we're going to be in Xenia, Ohio, the card show. Where
Huge
is this
show.
thing?
It's at the Greene County Fairgrounds, and I think it's 170 tables this month. 2 buildings. Plan on being there for the day if you're coming and you actually want to take in the whole show. If you think you can stick your head in there for an hour or two, you won't see everything, but it'll still be worth the trip.
Yeah, Xenia, Ohio. So I've been working tirelessly for the last less than 24 hours.
Yeah, like he started yesterday.
But I got a good little $1, $2, and then working on prices, mark stuff now. So it's going to be a decent little showing for my first show.
All I know is Jason calls me last night and says, so I'm getting started on this. And I went, what? He goes, yeah, I'm getting started sorting stuff out. When did you, for your first show, how much time did it take you to get ready? I said, about 30 hours.
Let her rip, baby.
About 5-6 hours a night for a week getting ready. And he's like, oh, yeah, I'm not going to put that much time into it.
Nah, people could be cheap. I could do all of this work and then not make a lot of money.
Well, welcome to Launching Businesses 101.
Yeah, no thanks. All right, jumping to football. I think we need to jump off with just absolutely the biggest story this week in football, which was what everyone witnessed happening on the field at Monday night game with Damar Hamlin. Absolutely, I can't. There's not a right word for that experience.
It was scary to watch, and it was weird because I remember texting you. I'm watching the game, and when I'm watching a Monday night game, especially a Monday night game, I've worked all day, I'm tired, I'm sitting in my chair, and I'm usually flipping through either Facebook or TikTok on my phone while I'm watching the game. I'm kind of paying attention to the game, I'm kind of not. And I hear, oh, this Hamlin just went down, and I look up, and he's on the ground, and they show the replay of the hit, and it didn't look like neck was involved or anything, but I couldn't think of what else it was. And he was down for 4 or 5 minutes, but nobody was freaking out at that point yet. But I texted Jason half jokingly, like, is this guy dead? Like, what's going on here? Like, half jokingly, and then 10 minutes passes by, and he's still down. And now you see Buffalo players sobbing and looking like their souls have been ripped out of their bodies. And it's like, oh shit, he might actually be dead on the field.
Yeah.
It turns out he was, and he was resuscitated.
Like 10 minutes of CPR, 9 minutes of CPR.
Yeah,
They said
it was horrifying to watch, and you just think about the statistical improbability of what happening. What's the name for that?
Oh, cordis is one of the words.
Yeah. What occurred, if you're not sure, and it's much more common in every diagram that talks about this, is a baseball player. It's much more common in baseball, but it's when you have a traumatic impact to the chest that occurs at a very specific point in the heart rhythm, and it basically just stops your heart. Mm-hmm. And that's why he took the hit from T. Higgins, popped up, took 2 steps because his brain hadn't caught up with his body yet, and then just went down. Did you find it?
No.
Okay.
I will.
But that's what it is. And so watching that, and then watching,
I'm
got
going
it?
to
Butcher it?
this. Commodio cordis.
No, you didn't butcher it.
A heart arrhythmia that occurs when someone takes a direct hit to their chest, but it would have to happen at the exact millisecond where the heart is basically electrically charging.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It's very rare, but that's what it is. And so the chances of it happening are astronomically low. Mm-hmm. And so for it to happen, especially in a sport like football, is scary in and of itself. But we also, as humans, tend to have recency bias, and we tend to have experiential bias. It's the reason that people are afraid of flying in an airplane but not afraid of driving in a car. Your chances of getting in a car accident are 1,000 times higher than your chances of being in a plane crash. But people are more afraid of getting on a plane than they are of getting in a car. Right. There was a lot of talk I saw in days after it, articles being written by reactionary morons of maybe this will make changes in football and we will stop tackling people and we'll play 2-hand touch. And listen, the chances of this specific thing ever happening again are infinitesimal.
Yeah.
We don't make reactionary changes based upon emotional responses to tragedy. If we did, society would collapse. And no, I'm not comparing the NFL to society, but in general, that's not how we do things. Now, that being said, in the long run, I think the NFL handled this well, although in the short turnaround of it, I don't think everybody in the league office knew exactly what was happening on the field. That's why there was okay, everybody, you got 5 minutes. Let's get ready and finish this game.
Yeah, and what I really liked seeing was as the coaches were meeting, you could see that there was pressure for them to get back on the field. And in that moment, none of that mattered at all. It was the last thing that needed to happen that night. And I even saw, just reading body language, the officials were feeling the same way.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone was on the same page. That game was not happening. Seeing, Cincinnati's a fan base. As a Cincinnati Reds fan, Dolphins fans been to Bengals games. That's not a fan base I typically enjoy being around.
Thanks.
They're just kind of... They act like they've won a lot of Super Bowls, I feel like.
Wow.
So, in an injury like that, a lot of times the respectful thing is to be quiet and applaud. But the city of Cincinnati just really seemed to kind of rally around and care very much about what was happening and be able to embrace the gravity of the situation in that moment. And just hearing from different players in the Bengals organization say how wonderful a job Cincinnati did, just supporting and being around and available. Players going to the locker room, being there for each other. I thought that part of it was pretty impressive. But I found myself all week checking in for updates.
Oh yeah, every few hours.
Yeah.
And the good news is that it appears that while he's not out of the woods yet, Damar Hamlin, not Devar, is trending in the right direction. He's communicative. He has movement in his body. He hasn't been able to talk because I think he might still be on a ventilator, but he's communicating via writing, which means his brain didn't receive permanent damage of any kind.
And the first question he asked
was, did we win?
Yeah.
Yeah, which again tells you the mindset of these players.
Yeah.
It takes a lot to get a football player who is pumped and ready for a game to step back and go, I'm not playing this game. It takes a lot. These guys... I heard Jason and Travis Kelce talking about this. They did their podcast this week, which shout out to those guys. If you haven't checked out the New Heights podcast, it's awesome. You should check it out if you love football. But they talked about this in a very short podcast this week. It was 20 minutes. It was just about this. When you play football for a long time, you see some shit. You see some really bad injuries. You see neck injuries. You see paralysis. You see bones sticking out of skin. You see some bad things. And you're conditioned to, okay, let's go. Next man up. That sucked, but we got to go. This was such a scary situation that one of the biggest dynamics of power, for the league or for any power situation, when you're in control of something and you have the power to make a decision over things, you only have that power in so much as the people who you have control over are willing to abide it. If the NFL had tried to push this game, I think you would have seen two teams walk out of the stadium with both middle fingers in the air and tell them to go stuff it.
Yeah.
And that would have set a horrible precedent for the NFL.
Yeah. Twitter, within seconds, the ambulance is still on the field and 5 million people are telling the NFL what to do in that moment. They need to have information. They don't know what's going on.
Exactly.
Sometimes the protocol is to put someone on a stretcher, strap them down, put them in the ambulance, and immediately that they are okay, but the protocol is blah, blah, blah.
Right.
This is not that situation. I do want to give them credit for making the right decision. Some people wish it was a little quicker. It could have been. Maybe they felt it came in an insensitive way, but I know that when people are scared or concerned or in panic, a lot of stuff we project is heightened. So
for sure.
The thing that will be really interesting to me personally, which, Damar has a choice if he'll ever even share this, is with an injury like that, what do you remember happening last in the game? Does he remember standing up from the tackle? Do you remember anything that was going on when you were being worked on the field? What could you hear? Just life-altering experience for him.
When you have to have CPR performed on you for 9 minutes at a time, you were dead.
And so we talk about him being able to talk, his lungs, this and that. The other part, if you had CPR performed on you for 9 minutes, good chance he has 3 broken ribs.
Oh, for sure.
There's a good chance, a few broken ribs and bones just from all those compressions. But man, what a crazy scene. And then you talk about, the other part of this conversation is, thank God he's okay. What are the playoff implications? What's going to happen, this and that? And the NFL responded in a way I did not expect.
Yeah.
I was expecting them to say, hey, here's when the game's going to happen. I expected them to wait to find out Damar's condition and if he was recovering and those types of things. It's just so weird to even say these sentences.
Well, so two things can be true at once. One of the things that is a real detriment to our society as a whole right now is almost every conversation comes down to either or. multiple things can be true at once. It can be true that this was a horrible situation and that the NFL did the right thing by canceling the game and calling it a no contest. It can also be true that that sucks for the other 8 teams, 9 teams that have implications about that game.
Yeah.
Those things can be true at the same time. It doesn't mean that it's okay to conflate them. It doesn't mean that it's okay to have these conversations simultaneously, but they can both be true at the same time. The reality is that by suspending the game and then calling it a no contest, meaning it's not a win, it's not a loss, it's not a tie, you've got 2 teams that are both in the playoff field that have played one less game than everybody else, which is a pretty big benefit from a condition standpoint, just from a physical condition standpoint. You've got another team that just got handed the number 1 seed who loses tiebreakers to both of the teams that were beneath them if they all ended up with the same record, which is kind of unfair as well. The NFL did come up with a solution for it that I think is functional. I don't think it's ideal, but I do think it's functional. And that is that Kansas City's the number 1 seed, but if they end up playing either the Bengals or the Bills in the AFC Championship game, it will be at a neutral site.
Yeah, I thought that they handled it in a way that seemed to make sense. It was creative, which I appreciate. It wasn't super predictable, which that's the frustration sometimes.
Yeah.
I know exactly what they're going to do. Well, they didn't. So super thankful to hear that news. As he was in the hospital and his status was unknown and there weren't a lot of updates, one thing that was really clear is you kind of learned a lot about who he is as a person.
Sure.
And then you find out about, the nonprofit work he does, the things he cares about, people responding with over $5 million in donations for toys.
It's still going on.
Yeah. And that part of that story is really incredible that this is something that has altered his life dramatically. And there's a lot of opportunities for difficult things to happen and good things to happen. And we just wish him nothing but the best. And for the players, that's got to be an interesting dynamic. You're around injuries all the time, but like you said, this is not like all the other injuries you've seen.
Right.
That's a traumatic experience for a lot of players.
For sure.
For T, all he was doing was running. It didn't even seem to be a direct hit. It was kind of
he just put his shoulder down to get a first down.
Not a high impact play.
No.
But no doubt wrestling with feeling guilty or shame or whatever's going on. So
which it was really cool to read that Damar Hamlin's family was reaching out to his family. Hey, we understand. Well, you're in our prayers. We want you to be okay too. Yeah. This wasn't your fault. From a hobby standpoint, I do want to touch on this, and we didn't talk about this leading up to prepping for this episode, but I do want to bring it up. One of the things that drives me batty in situations like this, whether it's when Kobe passed or something like this happening or whatever, something bad happens to a professional athlete, there is a segment, and unfortunately it's a rather large segment of our hobby, that goes into hardcore virtue signaling mode. Mm-hmm. And it makes me want to lose my mind. If you had a Damar Hamlin, I keep calling him DeVar. I don't know why. Damar,
it's never been his name.
It's never been his name. If you had a Damar Hamlin autograph rookie card and you put that card up on eBay after this accident occurred, do you know how much that affects my life? 0. Do you know how much it affects Damar Hamlin's life or his family's life? Also 0. So all of you out there screaming from the rooftops about how people who do this are dirtbags, shut your pie holes. You're virtue signaling to no one. No one cares about how good of a person you are because you're not going to participate in the profiteering of someone's demise. Shut up. Shut up. Damar Hamlin's cards, after this occurred, would have organically gone up 30%. Mm-hmm. But you morons all ran them up to $20,000 with no intention of ever paying for it to signal how good of a person you are. Shut up. Stop it. You're making an ass out of yourself, and you're making yourself look like a moron.
I would also say there's a category A1 and A2. A2 is the fishing with the photo.
Agreed. I'm not talking about just putting
Hey,
something up on eBay, some random person.
And then here's a super rare card that,
Yeah.
if anybody wanted to, maybe message me. But I just wanted, this is just to be clear, I'm just posting it for good vibes.
Yeah.
In a buy, sell, trade group.
The virtue signaling has got to stop. And it happens in all aspects of our society. But my God, people, you don't understand how dumb you are. You don't understand how stupid you look. And listen, that may piss you off. You may be listening to me say that and it make you upset. If that makes you upset, tough. I'm not sorry.
If you feel hurt from it, we will post a picture of you.
And you can virtue signal. You can virtue signal against me for stating the blatant obviousness. I would like to know how many of you who are virtue signaling about how terrible that is are doing it from your iPhone that's made from cobalt that's being mined by 5-year-olds in a pit with 15,000 other people. Oh, wait, you're not, because that makes your life easier.
Just to be clear, Gary didn't have the microdose drink. I did.
No, this fires me up, though. Like, it really fires me up. If you're going to virtue signal, you better be consistent. Otherwise, you're an ass. Sorry.
Yeah, I was wondering how you felt about that.
Yep, you're welcome. Next.
Playoffs. We got a few big games this week. Few teams that have games that are really going to mean something to them. And I just kind of want to run through those real quick. Let's go through the Jags first.
Jags and Titans.
Yes.
Saturday night game.
I like the Jags. I think the
Jags are going to roll that game. Josh Dobbs is starting for the – this is how bad it's gotten for the Titans. They drafted Malik Willis. Ryan Tannehill got hurt. They tried to play Malik Willis. Malik Willis is bad. Now, he may not be bad for the long term, but he wasn't going to be ready for 2 to 3 years. And they had to roll him out there, and it was ugly. So now they're rolling out Josh Dobbs, making a second career start. I think it's the 73rd or 74th NFL team that Josh Dobbs has been on. I don't see a world. Let me rephrase. If Derrick Henry goes for 4 tutties and 250, maybe they can win the game. But they got to give Derrick Henry the ball 35 times, and they got to keep the Jags off the field on offense. Yeah. That's the only way they win that game. And if they do win the game, we have for the second time in 3 years a division champion with a losing record.
Yeah. That's an issue too, man. What a division to be in.
Oof.
There's always hope.
Oof. I'll say this. The Jags are playing super well. Trevor Lawrence is who people said he was coming out of college. That's how dysfunctional the first year with Urban Meyer was, that he almost ruined a generational talent. It's amazing what happens with adequate NFL coaching and an offense that's functional. Yeah. And all of a sudden, Trevor Lawrence, the last 2/3 of the season, has been a top 5 quarterback in the league.
Yep, absolutely. I agree. Up next, the Bucks. Nobody's cheering for him. I had an analogy. I think this makes perfect sense. Tom Brady has turned into NWO Hollywood Hogan.
The bad guy.
Bad guy. Black T-shirt now.
Yeah, the Bucks won that division. Another terrible division. Nobody wants to play them in the playoffs, even though everybody thinks that they're not very good.
Yeah,
nobody wants to play them.
Nobody wants to be in that situation against Tom Brady.
Right.
Because he's done it.
Listen, I heard somebody say the other day that the nightmare scenario right now is an NFC Championship game of Aaron Rodgers versus Tom Brady. 2 teams that were written off as being dead in the middle of the season barely squeak into the playoffs, and now nobody wants any part of them.
Yeah, and that's the last matchup that we're talking about too. The Lions and the Packers.
Packers win and they're in.
Yep.
Lions still need help because they lost one they should have won last week. Mm-hmm. But the Lions 7-2. They started the season 1-6, and 3 or 4 of those losses were by less than 3 points. The teams played really well offensively for the most part of the year. Jared Goff has had a resurgent year. If you go look at Jared Goff's stats over the course of this year, you'll be shocked. Mm-hmm. If they don't get in the playoffs, because they need to beat the Packers, which I think they can do. I really do think they can do. I think they can beat the Packers. And they'll make the playoffs if Seattle loses, which I also think is possible. Mm-hmm. Yeah. The Geno Smith story's been nice, and it'd be cool if they got in, but something about seeing Dan Campbell coach a team into the playoffs makes me. I love that guy. I would play when I was playing. That's a guy I would have played for. I would have gone through a brick wall for that guy.
Yeah, Miami screwed up letting him go when he stepped into that interim role. He did a really good job.
Well, have they made – I mean, they're already talking about ruining a good hire now. They already ruined the last good hire they made.
If Miami Mike gets sent away –
Yeah.
Dolphins have a very talented coach that's like 20 years old. Dude, don't ruin it.
Right.
One little highlight here. J.J. Watt retires.
Yeah.
So another player that, if you saw the late part of his career, he's really good. I remember people. You may forget just how dominant he was for so long in a position where the attrition rate
correct.
is real high. Yeah.
If you're under the age of 30 and you didn't become a huge football fan until a little bit later, it's easy to think, what's the big deal about J.J. Watt? While I've been watching him, he's been an above-average player, but for 6 years, he was unblockable. He could play all 4 positions across the defensive line. He would literally line up every game and work his way across the line and find whoever was having a bad day and just line up over them the rest of the day.
Mm-hmm.
Ruin their life.
Yeah.
He was physically unblockable. And you combine that level of talent with maybe the greatest work ethic that anybody has ever seen.
You were talking about his quote.
Oh,
so good.
Great quote. Well, they did that Hard Knocks, and you reminded me of this, Hard Knocks with the Texans a few years ago, and there were people that were talking about this, this was just a publicity thing. And then everybody else on the team was like, no, he does this every year. Mm-hmm. During training camp, he just has a mattress brought into one of the training rooms. He doesn't leave the facility ever.
He's taking naps if he has a break.
Yes, he's putting in 16, 17, 18-hour days.
Yeah.
And he had a quote that I just absolutely love. And the quote is, greatness is never owned, it's only leased. And the rent is due every day. That dude embodied that. And the NFL is going to miss J.J. Watt and what he's meant to the league. He is going to be a unanimous first ballot Hall of Famer. Well-deserved.
Yeah.
Congratulations on an awesome career.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Hobby impact, you think, with the news? I don't know that it moves a whole lot.
He's a defensive player. His rookie stuff is solid. It's not great value-wise, but, boy, you could do a lot worse. And it's a card. You can get some of his rarer stuff for reasonable dollars. And when I say reasonable dollars, I mean you can get numbered rookie auto PSA 10s for $2,500 for a guy who's maybe the greatest that ever played his position.
Yeah,
that's not bad.
Also, if I'm in dollar boxes, $2 boxes, I'm asking if there's any JJ Watt stuff.
Yeah, any color stuff. Yeah. My $1 and $2 boxes have some color JJ Watt stuff for a buck or two. Yeah, fantastic. And I think that there's a chance we see Aaron Donald join him at the end of this year.
Yeah.
I wish, as a huge Aaron Donald fan, that Aaron Donald had done that.
What was
the Super Bowl?
Watt's rookie year?
2011. 2011.
Okay. And then Donald's rookie year was
13. 13 or 14.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Donald's career, not like 9 years in that position in the league as a force, is a long run.
Oh, for sure it is. Here's the difference between J.J. Watt and Aaron Donald. Aaron Donald, as a 3 technique, is the most disruptive 3 technique that has ever played in the NFL. The best penetrating 3 technique. It used to be Warren Sapp. It's Aaron Donald. The difference between Aaron Donald and J.J. Watt is this. Aaron Donald was amazing at that one spot, and they would play him at the end sometimes where he was not as effective, still really effective. J.J. Watt could play a wide 9, he could play a 7, he could play a 5, he could play a 3. They would occasionally put him at a 1 or a head up. And he was just as good at every single one of those spots.
Right.
It's from a football standpoint, what J.J. Watt was able to do is almost unheard of.
Yeah.
It's just almost completely unheard of.
Yeah.
And he caught some touchdowns as a tight end.
Yeah.
Which a lot of people don't realize, when his first stop in college was not Wisconsin, it was Central Michigan. And he was there on a scholarship as a tight end. And then they moved him to defensive end, and he was like, I don't want to be here. And he went to his parents and said, guys, I know that I got this scholarship, and that's how I was able to come to college. But I feel like I need to go be a walk-on at Wisconsin. His parents are not rich people. They're middle-class people. And they said, okay, you have 1 year. We will pay for college for 1 year. If you don't have a scholarship by the end of that time, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
And now he's going to go down as one of the all-time greats, maybe the greatest at his position.
That's cool. I did not know that.
Yeah, very,
Central
very
Michigan
cool.
and
Very
Wisconsin.
cool.
Let's stay in the football strain. We got some quarterback situations that have to get figured out, and it has to happen at some point soon. I'll get this started off with Miami Dolphins. The situation going on there. So the rumor going around town is Miami, if they don't make the playoffs, are going to get rid of their coach. And my first reaction was that would be stupid. And then I asked myself, I said, why would that be stupid? Well, we have a competent coach. Then I asked myself, well, then what's our problem? Well, maybe we don't have enough weapons. Well, it turns out we're about the fastest team in the NFL.
Yeah.
Maybe we don't have a defense. Well, it could be better, but defense has kept us in
Middle
just
of the
about
pack.
every game. Yeah. Quarterback. And I said to myself, which one? And I said Tua. And then myself said to myself, which Tua? And that
Right.
really was kind of where I landed. Miami has a decision to make. Gary was not convinced in Tua from the beginning. I didn't feel the same way. Tua has shown moments, and even a few weeks together, where he can be an efficient quarterback. But unfortunately, he's also shown that for 5 straight weeks, he can be a bad quarterback. And you can't have that level of inconsistency with that type of talent on the team. I think McDaniel is having a tough time continuing to place confidence into to be a long-term solution. And here's the thing for Miami fans. Tyreek is not young.
No.
We have speed, but one of our star players isn't going to give us 5 more years to build something.
Correct.
So I think, in my opinion, unfortunately, for Miami and the money they've invested in right now, it's going to be interesting to see what they do, but I don't think Tua can take Miami to where they should be. When we saw a above-average quarterback for, let's call it 6-7 games of this year, with those offensive weapons, that was a really tough offense to beat.
Yep.
And
then San Francisco rolled around.
San Francisco, and he got rattled. He straight up got rattled. Somebody had adjusted to the things that Miami was able to pull off, and he's really struggled since then. What concerns me the most is mentally, it doesn't seem like he ever overcame that hurdle.
He's fragile.
And he played to the competition, whether it was San Diego or LA, sorry. No matter who they were playing over the last several weeks, it's been like within one score when we've had opportunities to put the game away. So Miami's got a quarterback situation that they have to figure out.
Yeah, I think that at the end of the day, what you just said is exactly it. We talked about this a little bit in show prep. One of the biggest mistakes that NFL teams make on a regular basis, a lot of times at the quarterback position, sometimes at other positions, but a lot of times at the quarterback position, and it's amplified when it's a quarterback too, because it's the most important position on the field and in the franchise. They will draft and try to develop players based on physical skills and not on their actual tape. Tua, before his hip injury, was a better player. But after that hip injury, he lost some arm strength. And people will be like, what do you mean? How did a hip injury make you lose arm strength? You throw with your lower body. You don't throw with your upper body. I mean, you have to have somewhat of an arm, but you're throwing with your hips and your legs. So he became a somewhat different player then. They drafted him anyway.
Can I pause you right there?
You can.
I think that's a great point, and I'll add 2 things to that. You got a lefty.
Yeah.
And you have a lefty who has thrown with a wide stance as a not very big, tall person.
Yep.
And so he especially required that mobility. That's
Yes.
a great point. When you watch how he throws the ball, his stance is very separated where he's trying to leverage that. Like in a baseball swing, a lot of your power hitters would have an open stance or that stride set up so that they can trigger hip movement to make sure they're getting through the ball and not just throwing arms at it.
Yep.
So he's trying to do that. That's a great point, and I bet that had a lot to do with what
with the difference in where he could throw a ball to, for sure. So then, like we said, Tua's rolling. The offensive, the Miami offense is rolling. You know, Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle are going to both have 1,500 yards and 10 touchdowns. This is going to be crazy. Then you ran into DeMeco Ryans, the defensive coordinator for the San Francisco 49ers, who some of you may not remember was one hell of a middle linebacker for the Houston Texans back in the day. And he said, wait a minute. Every time I watch film and there's a ball that is in the air for more than 20 yards, it looks like a butterfly.
He did not say that.
Why?
He did not say that.
I don't know that he said it, but
Is that a quote?
No, but I'm watching.
That's plagiarism.
I know football pretty well, and DeMeco Ryans knows it better than me. And when I watch Tua, I say that. So
he had to say it.
At the end of the day, we talked about this after that game. He said, okay, you don't get crossing routes against us anymore where you can use your speed against us. We're going to close the middle of the field. If you can hit cover 2 holes, if you can take advantage of single coverage on the outside, congratulations, you're better than we thought. Guess what happened? They didn't, because Tua can't.
Yeah.
That's not me making fun of Tua. That's not me doing anything other than stating a blatantly obvious fact. Well, he cannot. You could put no offensive line in front of Tua whatsoever and give him a 3-step run to step up into something.
You're about to take it a little further than I would.
He would struggle to throw the ball 50 yards in the air. Well, it would get there, but it would be fluttery and it would take a while. Whereas when you look at a guy like Patrick Mahomes, flicks his wrist and he throws a BB 50 yards.
Yeah.
Right? So can Tua throw the ball 50 yards in the air? Yes. Any NFL quarterback can throw the ball 50 yards in the air, but it's some varying degree of velocity.
Is he capable of having a high accuracy rate on short to mid route stuff? Yes.
Yeah, for sure.
But he's also capable of...
Except for when teams blitz his balls off, because then his mechanics fall completely apart. I watched a little bit of film on both him and Zach Wilson last week, and I'm not saying that he is on... Let me finish.
I give him an inch and he takes a mile, ladies and gentlemen.
Let me finish. If you look at both of their feet under pressure, it's eerily similar. Tua is just a more accurate, smarter quarterback who understands his own limitations better than Zach Wilson does. The Dolphins need a quarterback. It's not Tua.
And it's hard for me to say those same words, even though I basically just said them, but hearing them from you makes me angry. And in addition to that, Miami doesn't need a star quarterback. They need an above-average quarterback.
They need Jimmy Garoppolo.
Somebody that is a threat on a deep route.
They need Jimmy Garoppolo.
Because here's the other issue with, and we're going way too far into this one, but you're used to this by now if you've been listening at all. You have 2 legitimate threats that can run a streak route, unless you have a quarterback that might be able to throw it there.
Correct. It doesn't matter how fast somebody is if he can't get on the ball.
Yeah. If it's, he might, we'd rather take a chance. And Tua's had some of those big plays. He has had them. Most of the time, they're 30-yard passes, not 50.
Your third-string quarterback has a better arm.
Well, I don't want to get in a whole lot of that.
He does.
They need a quarterback situation going on in Miami. I don't want to speculate yet because I think there's some more shaking up going on. You and I mentioned one player. You brought up Minshew as a possibility.
Minshew would be a great fit in Miami.
Interesting to see.
From a culture standpoint, his personality and Mike McDaniel's personality together would be amazing.
That whole team mic'd up with Minshew at quarterback.
Would be fantastic.
That'd be good.
It would be absolutely fantastic.
All right, Minshew to Miami. That was easy. Let's move on to the Washington football team Commanders with a new mascot. It reminded me of a Primus music video I saw back in the day with a pig in it.
I have a lot of respect for Ron Rivera as a human being and as a coach. Him deciding to start Carson Wentz with their playoff life on the line was one of the more baffling decisions that I've ever seen an NFL coach make. My brain almost vapor locked when I saw the news. Mm-hmm. If you watch the Commanders play football, now don't get me wrong, I am not here saying that Taylor Heinicke is a great quarterback, because he is not. He is a slightly below league average quarterback, which still makes him better than 10 starters in the league. But here's what Taylor Heinicke brings to the table that Carson Wentz does not. The other 10 guys on the offensive side of the ball play their asses off for Taylor Heinicke. Those other 10 guys, when Carson Wentz is on the field, look like they don't want to be there.
Yeah.
It's that simple. NFL teams, GMs, listen, stop trying to be the smartest guy in the room. Look at film, look at leadership capability, and draft your quarterbacks accordingly. Somebody this year in the NFL draft is going to take Will Levis in the first round, and it's going to be a tragedy for that franchise.
Yeah.
They're going to take Will Levis in the first round because he's a stud athlete who has also never thrown more touchdowns than interceptions, has never thrown for 2,000 yards in a season in college. I don't understand the thinking. I saw a mock draft the other day that had Will Levis going ahead of C.J. Stroud. Are you out of your mind? Are you literally insane? The Taylor Heinicke, not a great quarterback, but a good quarterback for that team. They love the guy. His teammates love him and will go out and play their hearts out for him. And they are disinterested when Carson Wentz is on the field. Yeah. I will take a physically limited player whose teammates love him and is a great leader over a physically gifted player 100 out of 100 times. Yeah. 100 out of 100 times. I heard, and I'm not a big Colin Cowherd fan, but he was telling a story about, and he didn't mention the player's name. I can venture a guess as to who the player was. But it was he was talking to the GM of the team, and he said, "Are you going to pick this guy?" And he said, "No, we're going to pick this other guy." And he went, "Well, this guy's way ahead of him on the field." And he went, "Yes." He said, "But talking to his college coaches, it's very simple. That kid on Saturday night before a game will go out and party till 4 a.m. And Colin was like, "Oh, so then he'll be bad on Sundays?" Nope. He will go out and he will perform on Sundays. It will not affect him in the least. Here's the problem. He'll take 6 other guys with him on Saturday, and those 6 guys will shit the bed.
Yeah.
Stop trying to be the smartest guy in the room. Zach Wilson should not have been drafted at number 2 overall. He should have been a 5th-round draft pick, and his career probably would have turned out much different than it has.
Yeah.
We would not be looking at Zach Wilson the way we look at Zach Wilson right now.
We would not be filling our dollar bin with Zach Wilson.
Because somebody wanted to be the smartest guy in the room. Stop trying to be the smartest guy in the room. Just know football and pick based on it.
Yeah. On to the next. What's going to happen in San Francisco?
San Francisco, for the second season in a row, find themselves in a real weird conundrum. Now, here's what I'll say about Kyle Shanahan. He's not afraid to cut bait. Jimmy Garoppolo was playing pretty well for you. Probably best he's played in his career. Gets hurt. You have to bring in Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant. Well, guess what? Brock Purdy has not looked bad. First 2 weeks, he looked really good. The next 2 weeks, he was okay. His mechanics got a little wonky, but then last week, he was really good again. The Niners have a roster that's built and a system that's built to where you can kind of plug and play. Remember the Broncos back in the 90s and early 2000s just seemed like any running back you put in there went for 1,400 yards?
Yeah.
It's kind of how this system is with quarterbacks.
Who was the one Terrell Davis?
Well, Terrell Davis is a Hall of Famer, but after Terrell Davis, you had Olandis Gary. You had like 4 or 5 guys that all put up numbers. But San Francisco now finds themselves in a situation. What do you do if Brock Purdy, who you're paying $200,000 a year for the next 3 years to, with no reason to change his contract at all, well, you win 2 playoff games and you get into an NFC Championship game. God forbid he gets you to a Super Bowl. You've got tons of capital tied up in Trey Lance with guaranteed dollars. There's no way you benched Brock Purdy if that happens. There's no way it's even an open competition in camp. And Trey Lance has played in one game in 3 years, counting college.
Yeah.
What are you going to get for him in trade? You're kind of in a weird spot with a lot of dollars tied up in somebody that's probably not going to play for you. Now, if Brock Purdy goes and lays an egg in the playoffs, you got a little different.
Yeah.
But the rest of that team's good enough that even if he lays an egg,
Yeah.
it's still a coin flip that they win the game.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. All right.
And don't go spend money on Brock Purdy autos. What they're going for right now.
Yeah,
His Mosaic autos are going for $1,000. Stop it.
Yeah. One last QB situation to navigate. It's in Vegas.
I might have been right about Jarrett Stidham all along.
Let's make this quick then.
I went kind of heavy on Jarrett Stidham when it looked like he was going to get the starting job in New England. And then they went and got Cam Newton. And everybody forgot about Jarrett Stidham. Jarrett Stidham just went out and put up better numbers than Derek Carr has at any point this year in his first start and almost beat a really good team. Now they're going to play the Chiefs in Week 17. They play the Chiefs in Week 17. Jarrett Stidham goes out and lights it up again and maybe beats the Chiefs.
Mm-hmm. It's going to be a big jump.
I mean, Derek Carr won't be back. They'll trade Derek Carr.
Did you send him to Miami?
It's not a terrible fit there. Here's the thing about Derek Carr that a lot of people don't realize.
He doesn't need a super long contract right now.
No, and every team he's ever quarterbacked, his teammates love him. I think he's a pretty good leader.
He has an arm.
He has an arm. He makes some bad decisions sometimes, and he's very streaky. But he doesn't lack confidence. That's what I think the biggest problem with Tua is. I know we're off of Tua, but Tua is just so mentally fragile that if something bad happens, he just falls apart.
That's why there's two versions of him.
You can't do that as a quarterback at any level, let alone the NFL. That doesn't happen to Derek Carr. Derek Carr, it doesn't matter whether the last pass was a touchdown for 70 yards or an interception. He's the exact same guy. He's forgot about it. It's in the past. It doesn't matter anymore. The thing about him to Miami is he has publicly said that he doesn't ever want to play anywhere other than for the Raiders, and he'll retire before he plays anywhere else. So
I don't believe you.
I don't necessarily believe him either, but he's been pretty straight shooter most of his career. So we'll see what happens there. I don't know that Stidham's the long-term answer, but boy, if he goes out and puts another good showing together, they've got him on a real friendly contract. Yeah. Maybe they draft a developmental guy next year and roll him out there. And I won't be mad because I've got a lot of really nice Stidham stuff that I got pretty cheap.
And, at the end of season here, while it's still up in arms, if they haven't declared that he's going to be the guy going forward, we get into playoffs or we run to a place where the Raiders aren't.
Right.
You're going to be able to pick him up pretty cheap. I'll be looking for him at the card show tomorrow.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
It'll be a lot of probably $3 to $5 stuff there that may be worth taking a chance on.
For
honestly.
Sure. Absolutely.
All right. Before we wrap up, we've been talking a while.
Have we? How deep are we?
It's been 4 years. Also, I'm a grandfather.
What?
Well, that drink.
Oh, okay. You scared the tar out of me for a minute.
Waiting on product. So Mosaic is out.
Yep.
Mosaic last year was a tough rip. This year it's also a tough product.
It's such a big checklist.
Big checklist. All sticker autos, right? Nothing on
Correct.
card with Mosaic. And expensive for what it is. In my opinion, and I told you this when it came out, it's cool, but I don't really love Mosaic. I'm kind of in the minority there. People love the look of the product. I've never been now I'll say some of their like variations with front off the line, some of the super SP stuff, like first off the line. I like that, but I'm not spending what it takes to get in those brakes. I'm definitely not buying those boxes. So
no, not the first one. I think Hobby came out at $425.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is again, last year was $800.
Yep.
Got up to $1,100. The draft class is part of it, but also I think that Panini realized that nobody was spending that kind of money anymore. That's why product sits on shelves at retail now. It's just overpriced. But at the end of the day, when you've got a product that's a big checklist and it's expensive, it's really, really, really tough.
If I'm getting into a break with Mosaic, it's going to be a large, maybe a case, some type of mixer that has some of those SSP things in it. But you got to be really willing to get skunked on anything of quality. You will get a bunch of base cards that don't hold any value.
Correct.
So just look at what you're getting. Look at how many packs, how many autos, how many SSPs. What does this particular version of this product have, this SKU that the others don't? You have to do a little bit more homework with Mosaic. It's when you get excited to get into because the really pretty cards are gorgeous. But I've just never had a real great experience with that. Retail, if you get it, don't expect.
Retail hasn't dropped yet.
Yeah. When is that coming out? Well,
probably if it goes like everything else, another week or two.
So
Absolute is out.
This brings me to my next
out.
point. We're still waiting on a lot of football.
Oh, we will be waiting on a lot of football.
We're waiting on Prism, National Treasure, Immaculate, Flawless. Will football be over when it comes out?
We're still waiting.
I mean, we're going to be past the Super Bowl before it drops.
Yeah.
That's stupid.
For sure. We haven't even seen – I don't think we've seen Dawn Rush yet.
Yeah. So, interesting thing about this. So, we're waiting on a lot of products. Panini's stuff is still way behind on the licensed NFL. Basketball's an issue too. However, when that happens, your breakers still need to make money. And so, one interesting take I was talking with Gary about is that the interest in baseball hobby-wise has gone up, and I have a theory that, if you're all of a sudden your allocations seem to be drying up, products are super delayed, but Topps has not let you down yet, you're going to be pushing a lot more baseball. I'm seeing a lot more of the, let's call it high-end Topps products. There's not a ton of really high-end stuff, but some of the, and some newer products getting dropped, but a lot of push for that. I think if you're somebody that has collected baseball over the last 5 to 10 years that's selling, you may want to revisit some of that. I think there's more hobby interest now just because that's the only sport that is kind of on time.
Right. I've also seen a push with a lot of these breakers pushing Panini baseball products.
Yeah.
Which, puke. No thanks.
If there is yes, I agree. However, there are products that are not licensed baseball that I like.
I love Leaf.
Those patches are sick.
Part of my issue with Panini baseball products is the first word there, Panini.
Yeah.
I have lost all faith and respect for them as a company. So I'm a little biased there. There are certain things, sports, that you don't have a choice. That's if you want football products, Leaf and Panini are what you got. Unless you want pure college-y stuff, you can get some Bowman University.
It's still on the shelves.
Right. But the unlicensed Panini baseball stuff is, and it's priced stupid. The only thing that's not priced stupid is like National Treasures and Flawless. They're reasonably priced for what they are. But I know like Leaf just dropped, and they're $40 at the store. But listen, they just dropped a Hall of Fame cut signature series, and each blaster. Listen, you can not like Leaf as much as you want to not like Leaf. That's fine. But what other product can I go into a Target or a Walmart and grab a blaster that's $40, but guarantees me a slabbed cut signature of a Hall of Famer? Like, that's out there right now. It's $40, but I'm going to get a slabbed cut signature of a Hall of Famer. What's out right now is the baseball edition. There's Willie Mays cuts in there. There's Hank Aaron cuts in there. Now, are you going to get those? No, you may get an Enos Slaughter or a Jimmy Fox. Guess what? Still a Hall of Fame cut signature.
And an easy thing to move at a card show
or
online. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So we've gone for nearly an hour now.
Fantastic. Everybody's been interested. I only have one rant, too. It was a good one, but it was only
Ladies
one
and
rant.
gentlemen, did you hear that? Gary alleges that he had one rant in that episode.
What other rant did I have? I just had the one.
Well, I guess I can't count a monologue as a rant.
I only had one rant.
Say it. Don't say it. Don't say what you're thinking.
Nope.
We love you guys. We will be back. This has been the Ball Card Show, the sports podcast.
For the Sports Collector.
See ya.
Peace.